Welcome to the HOLDO MANEUVER podcast. I'm Mark.
And I'm Mike. We're two hardworking dads trying to immerse ourselves into Star Wars and fit it into our very busy lives.
If this is your first time listening and or watching, in this sometimes short-form Star Wars podcast, we'll share our thoughts on different topics from a galaxy far, far away. So join us as we prepare to execute the HOLDO Maneuver. All right.
You gotta go to Arizona, don't you? He'll be back. Don't worry. Howdy.
Hey, everyone.
What would the Mandalorian be called if he were a woman that traveled through time?
Doctor Who? I don't know.
Din McFly?
No. Mandalorian. Go walk.
Well, welcome, Christian. Welcome to the whole.
I have a new toy.
Christian is joining us from the Richmond Til We Die podcast tonight for our HOLDO Maneuver episode 43 for the Mandalorian, season 3, episode 6, chapter 22, Guns for Hire. So, welcome to the show, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
In this episode, basically, we're going to just be talking about the Bryce Dallas Howard directed episode from the season. She usually, in the past 2 seasons, has had like a lot of the fan favorite episodes from season 1 and season 2. And this one aired on April 5th. So as of recording, this episode debuted yesterday. And this seems like, at least for what online discourse is nowadays, it seems to kind of almost be the Last Jedi of the Mandalorian episodes, whereas people either really, really, really enjoyed this episode or they very much disliked it. So
it had faults, but it wasn't bad. I'll give it that.
Yeah, so the brief synopsis of it was the Mandalorian visits an opulent world. So I guess what were kind of your initial thoughts on the episodes? We'll go round robin, starting with Christian and then Mike and then myself.
Number of times where I was trying to figure out what this episode wanted to say. It feels like the Mandalorian tries to say things less than some other shows, specifically Andor, like, coming off of Andor, and as though there were always messages there, and it's be messages, and I got lost in trying to parse them out and figure them out, but then I guess in the end was relief by the episode. So next chapters.
How about you, Mike?
Part of me feels that as the season goes on that they had to edit it in a way to cut out things that were building to a show that got cut. I don't know why. Just because they have this central storyline of Bo-Katan finding herself, becoming the leader, but then they throw in all this other stuff, this world building stuff, and it's like, was that meant for something else? I mean, I'm enjoying it because it's still entertaining and it's still good Star Wars, not bad Star Wars in a way. It's just because last week they in my mind, they righted the ship and found a focus, but then they went right back to this lack of focus almost. Or they shifted to a tangential story instead of the main story. I don't know. It's just this weird feeling I get that something got changed, and after all this was filmed, they're like, crap, now we got to manipulate it. I don't know.
I can kind of see that. I do know when I watched it yesterday that at first, although I was like super tired when I watched it, but like at first I was like, I had wondered if like I had missed a scene or something because I didn't remember as far as in between like the last episode where like the armorer sets up and says, you know, that Bo's going to go off and kind of like bring these different Mandalorian groups together. I didn't remember if like Din said he was going to, you know, tag along kind of as like,
I don't think he
like
did.
with her. So I guess that they had to kind of do that to kind of keep them together since they're both the series regulars for this season. Because otherwise, you'd have a show where the main character wasn't in the episode. Although they have done that before. But yeah, so like when that happened at first, I thought maybe like I had fallen asleep at the very beginning of the episode, and I was like, wait, when did Din say he was going with Bo-Katan? But I liked my initial impressions of this were that I liked the episode. I know that it had quite a few guest stars that we'll get to, but they at least two of them I'm like really big fans of. It. I like the third one too, but the other two I'm like, you know, Back to the Future is my favorite movie, and then I'm a big fan of Tenacious D. So when Jack Black showed up and Christopher Lloyd showed up, I was very happy. And there's as Christian did with the dad joke at the beginning, there's so many Mandalorian jokes you could do with Christopher Lloyd being in the Mandalorian. But yeah, so I guess so. This episode it opens with Bo-Katan, Din Djarin, and Grogu setting out for the idyllic planet Plazar 15, where Bo-Katan's former army, now led by Axe Woves, which is the Star Wars of Star Wars names. It feels like have kind of set themselves up as mercenaries, and was this Moff Gideon's ship from season 2 that they just basically kept?
I don't know the answer to that. I was wondering myself where they got a Star Destroyer. Because I was like, that's kind of badass that they're just kind of like, this is ours now, and flying around the universe in it.
Yeah. What did you think, Christian? Did you think that was possibly like a ship we've seen before? Because I liked how they had like the whole interaction with like the Mon Calamari. I don't remember the name of the other like kind of like squid like race, but like that like whole interaction there too.
The Kraken.
Oh yeah.
It's called. I don't know if that's what they're called or not. I'm just making shit up. No, that was I didn't like. They were going through that thing. I was like, what is going on? And then they showed him on that Star Destroyer, and I was like, holy hell! They just stole a Star Destroyer. That is awesome.
And apparently a lot of other things. They had a whole
yard
full of contraband ships
taking stuff.
Yeah, kind of what's the character from Eternals who like had like all that stuff like on their ship in that kind of like that a little bit.
Spoils.
Now what? Oh, the spoils. Yeah, so like before they can meet them, they involuntarily diverted by the planet's rulers, Captain Bombardier and the Duchess. So Captain Bombardier was Jack Black, and then the Duchess was Lizzo, who asked for their help in neutralizing several repurposed but malfunctioning Imperial and Separatist droids.
Were they just sitting there sucking on fish slime?
I don't know. It looked like they were smoking like a hookah.
Because I was like, they had this tank with all the tubes coming from it, and I was like, are they just drinking fish water? Like,
maybe they were breathing.
That's true.
Still, it was just strange.
A lot of ops. Yeah.
I did like
very Hunger Gamesy, the Capitol people.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, especially with Jack Black's like magnificent beard with like how it was like coiffed to almost be like Donald Sutherland's like in the Hunger Game movies. But going back to the Mon Calamari we'll call it the Davy Jones ship too. I liked that whole design with that too, like how the captain was kind of like in that like water tube.
I didn't know what was going on with that.
Which is kind of interesting. Like they were in the water tube, but like the rest of the crew wasn't. And then like, all right, I'm done in this water tube. And then they're just. I thought that was kind of like an interesting going on there. And then there's like this like random kind of like, I don't know, like Romeo,
it was Romeo and Juliet
type romance going on with the two like aquatic races that normally in Star Wars have not liked each other. So I thought I'd be up for seeing more of that. I like this kind of like random stuff like But were you guys excited to see kind of like these Imperial and like battle droids back too, especially since this is like after post Return of the Jedi, so like these battle droids now are like 20, 30, like almost 30 plus years old at this point.
Yeah, it was cool to see them in really all the droids, because this show does a really great job with like costume props. Everything feels very immersive, and so it felt like in some ways very familiar, but then also experiencing them in a way that we hadn't experienced them quite as vividly before.
Yeah, I like that. And I don't know what they were. The servant people, they had like the stormtrooper bottom half on. That was just like, or clone troop. I don't know what they were supposed to be, but they had the pants on at least. I was like, they're just like repurposing things from the Empire there.
Yeah, very like a. Okay.
Well, I was just gonna say it's one of the things makes show and that this show Star Wars is things feel big and expansive, and so for them to have like grabbed all of these different things like you would in the real world or the real galaxy or whatever, and for that to be kind of visually jarring is effective.
I also was like, when they what was with the dome? Like, why did they live in a dome? I didn't get that.
Well, with that when that first showed up, is especially since Bo was like going to try to find more like Mandalorians, I thought this was just kind of like another kind of planet that like the Mandalorians had basically like terraformed to kind of be similar to Mandalore, because on Mandalore they had like similar kind of biodomes, Sans, Pauly Shore, and Stephen Baldwin. So like, because it looked very similar to like when they would show flashbacks of what Mandalore had looked like, like before or like during like Clone Wars era. So it just seems like it's a way for like, I guess, different kind of life forms to kind of coexist on these planets, so that they can have kind of, at least that's how I'm headcanoning it, so that it has like different ways that they can like live within like different conditions.
Yeah, I thought it was like toxic to live outside the dome, but then the Mandalorians were just chilling out there with all their paraphernalia.
Yeah. And I did like that they touched more on the amnesty program too, that we had gotten back earlier in this season. So that's why I still think that like anyone that's like, I guess, somewhat complaining about like some like side quest kind of stuff, is that this stuff is building on top of things that we have seen. So I do think it's at least not going anywhere. It is building to something. So I am curious to see what they do with that. And I did really like how Jack Black was playing this character in this too.
He's part of the Empire.
Yeah. Now, can you imagine that, like Jack Black's character, like as part of like the Empire, like before, like not acting this way?
I mean,
I guess
he is Bowser now, so.
This seemed much more like what you would expect from him than the necessity of being.
I mean, he probably got mind flayed, so.
That's true.
And since I'm kind of the one who's been like, it feels they're doing too much tangential stuff. It's not that I don't like that. It's just the way it's being presented is very jarring because they try to have a central story, but then they just do this tangent and then come back to the central story. And it's like, I don't know. It's just jarring to my brain.
Didn't jarring?
Yeah,
but that's what this show has always kind of been, is go to a planet, get into a fight, go to it. It's always that feel to it, like cadence, that rhythm. One of the things that this one was, then it was full of so much stuff. So to have 3 guest stars are as big as the individuals are,
right,
I think is a lot to take. And then whatever they're trying to do, talking about democracy, relying on computers, it being a little bit confusing, figuring out like where they're going to land on that. A lot to pack into 40 minutes.
True. Very true. And with the guest star thing, I've always been a proponent of Star Wars doesn't need big stars to come in and do things. So this season, they've kind of ramped up the guest stars. I believe you mentioned it felt like a sweeps episode.
Yeah.
And
throwback,
but I'm like,
bygone era.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, yeah, they're huge stars, but are we ever going to see them again? And if not, I'm okay with that. Like, they're not like crucial to any story. So I think they've done the guest stars in a good way for me so far.
I'm okay with it, and kind of, but then like I come at it from like 2 sides. Whereas, like with this, like I liked seeing Jack Black in Star Wars, but then now that he was used in this way in Star Wars, we won't ever. I mean, unless there's another character that's like a twin or a clone of this character.
He could be a clone.
I guess
He could be a failed Palpatine clone. We don't know.
Yeah, I would just be like, this will be the only way that we now like see like Christopher Lloyd or Jack Black or Lizzo like within like the Star Wars universe as
they were
this character they've now
this,
played.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're probably that to me. And what we're probably never gonna quite get is convincing of a guest star as Bill Burr was. And so then that does make it difficult to sort of bounce these other ideas off. And the other thing too is like there have been some guest stars that do come back, but honestly, like they're just not as famous, and so you can get them back. Whereas I feel like Jack Black and Lizzo and Christopher Lloyd have a lot going on, so the chances that they show up again seem pretty slim.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I'm in that court. And Christopher Lloyd as the villain, he's always great as a villain. So that was like I liked his role in this.
Yeah, I thought he was great. When they meet up with I think it was, what was his name, Hellgate later on.
Remember.
Which that's definitely a villain named Hellgate.
Did they think it was going to happen?
Yeah.
Hellgate's the field they used to drink in when we were in high school.
But yeah, like the thing I liked in this episode too is like the kind of like the production design that they did for this, where especially with this kind of like whole chase sequence that Din
Mhm.
and Bo did after the battle droid. Also, like in here too, like Din went back to being like kind of a d-bag to droids again. Like I thought he was like it kind of like got over that a bit, but seemingly is now like regressed.
Well, IG-11 tried to kill everybody. R5 ratted him out.
Sure.
He was
Also, these
eaten by
droids were
that droid
tripping.
machine. Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
I just laughed because he's sitting there kicking him. I'm like, what is he doing?
He's like, come on, do something.
Yeah, that was a poor life decision.
But yeah, I liked that whole scene because it reminded me kind of like Blade Runner a bit, at least as far as like within those films where like either in the first one like with Harrison Ford or like within the second with Ryan Gosling where they'd be like chasing after like different characters in that. So I just liked how that was done in here too, and I kind of liked how like the banter back and forth between Din and Bo in this too. I think they play really well off one another. So I like that they've been. I think definitely the best decision for season 3 was making Kitty Sackhoff this like the second series regular with Pedro Pascal because they have really good chemistry in the show. And then that way it also gives Din somebody else to talk to other than Grogu who can't really
himself.
Yeah, who can't really converse back other than to coo or purr if he's being held by Lizzo and who's like petting the top of his head.
That is one thing I wish they didn't do this season was the Grogu sounds. Like they didn't like pick a lane. They're all over the map.
Yeah.
It's just not digging that personally.
And then like so after that we see like they stop at this what is essentially like the anti cantina from Mos Eisley where it's like the inverse where it's all droids and so I liked kind of seeing like that kind of flip there where they I thought it'd been kind of funny if they said like we don't serve your kind here to Din and
he doesn't like you. I don't like you.
I'm honored in 7 systems. But yeah, I just kind of liked that flipping there. But it's cool to see a lot of the kind of like prequel era stuff being recontextualized and reused in later in the timeline of like the Star Wars universe now too. Especially with Mandalorian has done it a lot between like the pit droids that like Pelimoto has, and then like we've seen some battle droids here, and then there's some battle droids that showed up in Bad Batch as well, in season 2 of that. I mean that's a little bit closer to Clone Wars still, anyways, but I liked like the centering on a lot of these droids and seeing like the different production design for some of these too, where we saw like these different like the kind of the protocol droids similar to 3PO and like the different designs.
Yeah,
there's like that like was it like not magenta but like almost like turquoise looking one. I just liked to like how they're able to like to change up and like do like these different designs.
Yeah, there've been a lot of those this season. I've noticed. There's the white one. There's the one with the different face that Carl Weathers uses. There's this blue one. There was a black one. There was a silver one. They're just all over the map on this one with those.
All the action figures.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just like, is it just a model kit you go to the store and buy and you get a protocol droid? They're all the same.
Yeah, you just go in there. It's like you just go in the droid depot and you build your different protocol droids and choose what color you want and eyes and whatnot. So like the next thing here too is that they find out that the droids were sabotaged through nanodroids in the bar's maintenance fluid, which were covertly imported by Commissioner Elgate, who's the head of the planetary security office. Which I thought this was interesting too. Like when they go and confront him, he reveals himself as like a separatist before Bo-Katan knocks him out
quite easily.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she's punching an old dude in the face. Like,
I thought she shocked him. Did she punch him or did she shock him?
well,
Yeah,
knocked him out. Yeah, with the I guess like almost like the Black Widow type thing.
The non-paintball versions of the thing Grogu was trained.
Yeah. What'd you say, Christian?
But yeah, that was. It just reminded me of Christopher Lloyd and Roger Rabbit, that scene.
Oh, as Judge.
when he gets kicked.
Yeah. I was waiting for him to start screaming, and that's what my mind went there. He's going to do the scream, isn't he? But nope, just out cold.
I liked with his character too, how like he wasn't. I mean, I don't think his character is like like a bad character as much as like say like some like he's not Moff Gideon like villain, but he was just kind of more I kind of like upset with how like lazy everybody on the planet was. So to essentially with that was like, all right, you guys are gonna be lazy. Let's see how you like when all your droids stop doing what you need them to be doing, since you completely rely on them.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was interesting because the droids were afraid that the humans were going to replace them.
Right.
Mention it. It was like, that's just a strange concept to me, because I guess if you think about the battle droids, they were replaced by humans, so they could have that fear, but they're also droids. Like, it's weird what they've been doing with the droids and making them more sentient, and it's cool. I'm not going to say it's not. It's just makes you think.
Yeah. So from here too, then we also see that he is then exiled by Jack Black and Lizzo, which like that scene was interesting too, because it was almost like because like Lizzo's playing like a duchess of that planet.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it was supposed to be that his character like was in love with her or anything, but just that I'm trying to figure out like the best way to like phrase it, but where like he was like he felt ashamed that he had done something to like dishonor her, or like I guess kind of dishonor himself in some way to her, just with kind of like the way that he reacted to it. It wasn't kind of like, oh, like I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for like those meddling kids type of thing. But he like felt like remorseful, like in a way. I'm not sure if I'm like phrasing it correctly, but like it just seemed. I don't know how best to contextualize it. It just seemed like a different way of like how he felt after like being caught and kind of exiled for having done what he did in the episode.
No, I just kind of my brain was like, he put those nano droids in the fluid. Maybe there's going to be more to that to come, and he's just like saving face so he doesn't get killed or something on the way out the door. I could be overthinking it, which is entirely possible. But no, it was that whole scene before that where they're playing that game was just strange. Like, why show this? Like, I don't know.
See, I think
that's where.
Good. Sorry.
It's just that's where it kind of gets into what was this episode trying, if it was trying to say things. the sentiency of the droid, and this kind of rogue character that take on almost like takes it upon himself to do what the Empire is doing. Like there's this like zealotry, like this individual zealotry, and then people to work or to just become numb. There's a lot swirling there, and probably just too much. Like it would have helped if something was streamlined, I think,
Right.
to follow the story, but then also just to help people feel their way through the episode.
Yeah.
That's true.
Because then, like, once again, you get this whole middle piece, and then the main reason they're on the planet kind of gets no time.
Right.
Because think about how the season started. I got to go get this part for the droid so I can go to Mandalore, bathe in the waters. Well, here's this droid. Go away from me. Oh, okay, perfect. I bathe in the waters. Keep going. It's like,
yeah, I remember
all these tasks just seem so quick. Bullet points. Like, okay, we checked it off. Now let's go to the tangential story. So it's like,
it's more to get.
Go ahead.
It's just like a vehicle to get from one place or characters from one place to the next world.
That's true. Because I also like remember like after like he basically did the task that we thought was going to take all season in the second episode. That like a lot of people were like, "Oh man, what's now? What are they going to do?"
Yeah,
they already did what we thought was going to be
the
like
the
finale in episode 2.
I know, it was just so quick.
It has been kind of interesting, like when you kind of like knock the stuff off like that. So like he goes to Navarro, tries to get IG-11 resuscitated. They take half of IG-11's corpse out of the middle of Navarro, reanimate it. It's gone back to its original programming. So, all right, now I guess I'll just get another droid. And then he goes to the Mines of Mandalore. That all happens. Bo's planet, or like her castle, gets destroyed, so she joins him. Then we go to Coruscant, see all the amnesty program stuff there. Meanwhile, big alligators trying to eat all the Mandalorians there. and then Bo accidentally joins the cult. And then they save the kid from getting eaten by another animal on that planet. And then from there, they then go back to Navarro to try to save Grief from Captain Seaweed. And
old Greg. That's who that was.
Yeah, Captain Seaweed, old Greg. And then the armor then gives Bo this new mission to essentially bring all the Mandalorians back together, which brings us to this episode where they go to do that. And we re-meet these characters from season 2, because I don't remember that dude was that dude with Bo in season 2. I know the other woman was with her in that. She's because I think she's like a WWE wrestler.
Oh, not anymore.
Or okay.
She quit. She wrestles in Japan now.
All right.
Oh,
there you go. Or in a galaxy far, far away. So I am interested to see, because we have 2 episodes left to the season. So I'm interested to see, like, as far as like how this arc is played out to here, what the penultimate episode will be after this, because we'll talk about it in a second, and then the finale after that with just how like we've gotten to all these things. Because so like after this, Bo and Din are finally like granted an audience with basically the Mandalorian like mercenaries, more or less. And Bo-Katan challenges Wolves for leadership and defeats him. So, and then the episode ends with, to basically help her reascendance, Din basically readmits like his capture by the cyborg back in episode 2 of the Minds of Mandalore, and his rescue by her, and then gives her the Darksaber back. Which the only thing with this, I thought like that was like the whole reason she wouldn't take it from him at the end of season 2 is because like she had been handed it before by Sabine, like back during Rebels, and then she said that wasn't like the way that I guess should have gotten it, because of like it ended up giving like bad juju and bad luck to all of us. And then she's essentially gotten it back in more or less kind of the same way that she got it.
But Din logic the hell out of it.
Yeah.
And it was a necessary and tidy resolution, because there had come a point in this episode where I was like, man, you know, like, are Din and Bo just like gonna have to fight? Is he gonna have to like go into exile and just like pretend that she vanquished him? And this ended up being a better way to go about it. And there were some different circumstances too, because she did just assert herself over wolves, and so ex-wolves, and so like they had kind of fought over the fleet or whatever, and so probably more people than were willing to see her as the legitimate leader. And there's something else that I just thought of too that just escaped me, but and then I think too, like, her perspective has just changed as she kind of joined the cult and saw the underwater beast and stuff, like, and I think her worldview is just a bit different now.
Yeah, she's definitely gotten her views changed and world shattered in both the castle and religious beliefs. I still think they're gonna have a fight, him and Din and Bo. I still think there's gonna be something there where they have a disagreement and end up battling it out in some fashion. I don't know when, because I just feel like they played that up like that was going to be the thing so much that something's going to happen. I also think there's going to be a civil war between the Mandalores.
Again.
Yeah. Because
that's all they do. It's their brand.
Yeah. Because of the comment like, oh, he's not really one of us. Like, he's just a foundling, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still on this. The armor is the real bad guy of this season. Train that I've been saying since the beginning of this season, or especially with kind of like the side conversation that she had at the end of the last episode with Paz Vizsla about needing to restore Mandalore. I feel like she has some kind of ulterior motive with what she's like quested Bo-Katan with doing, whereas like I'm not sure of exactly what it is that she's kind of trying to happen there, but I feel like she's trying to kind of manipulate and pull strings in certain ways for a certain outcome that will lean in her favor at the end of all this. And I'm thinking that's something that we'll see happen like in these next two episodes at the end of the season. Because I feel like between like the penultimate episode that we'll get next week, and I know next week Dave Filoni wrote that episode with Jon Favreau, so that should be interesting to see exactly what all happens in that one. And then the finale is just written by Favreau again, so I'll be curious to see what they do from here. Probably get more Grogu jumping.
He did a lot of that. Just a lot of random.
I don't need any more of that. Yeah,
and it's always looked awkward.
Yep.
I did think it was funny how like Din kind
He's
of
not-
like
don't do it.
like groaned when he jumped. He's like
Mhm.
he doesn't really like strangers, and then Grogu like jumps. He's like, "Shut up, Dad. I'm gonna jump over there and let her hold me if I want to."
Yeah. And the other part of that was he helped her win that game. And I was like, oh, that's going to come into play later, like him helping who he likes. And then it hasn't yet. So I thought he was going to help Bo beat X there. That's a strange sentence.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
You want some soup?
Oh man, yeah. I don't know. That like went down the wrong pipe for me trying to laugh at that.
No, it's just they made a whole point of him doing that for her. It's just things like that. I'm just like, what was the point? I need the payoff now, and then I hadn't gotten it. Maybe it'll pay off later. I don't know. I just haven't figured out why they did certain things that make logical sense to me. So that's just where I'm at with this episode. Was just like, there's a lot that happened, but why?
Yeah.
That's true. And I guess to kind of like close out our thoughts about this episode of The Mandalorian, is there any kind of like moments or just things that stood out to either of you that we haven't talked about yet, or that you kind of wanted to like reaffirm or expand upon it at all before we close out talking about the episode, Christian and then Mike?
I did think it was interesting in your guys' last episode. I was watching that back and how you guys talked about the idea of like the spirituality of this season, and you know, it was like Bo-Katan, Star Wars Jesus or whatever, and it was like I don't think that got resolved, but there is that interesting dynamic between her and Din Djarin of you know, who can save everybody essentially. And now the baton has been passed to her, which I was skeptical of when that first happened. Like, is anybody really going to listen to her? But now I'm convinced that they probably will. So I think thematically there does seem to be that philosophical wrestling match happening. And I like that because it does give something to like grasp onto as we think about where it might be going.
That's true. What do you think, Mike?
I'm just curious. Like, again, I gotta know the why we saw what we saw, and if it doesn't pan out, like, what's the story of why it didn't pan out? It was just it's hurt my brain trying to figure that out this episode, which didn't take away from the episode. I enjoyed the episode. One thing I didn't mention was when they used that Hyperloop train, I was like, are they going to Disney World? Like, that's what I thought immediately. It was like, that just looks like a Disney ride coming. And I don't believe this didn't clear up anything. Like, seeing those guys on the Star Destroyer did not change my mind. The Mandalorians did not free him off Gideon.
Oh yeah, we have that hanging thread too from the last episode.
It does seem a little too on the nose.
Yeah.
Like
when they open with that shot of the Star Destroyer, like not that shot, but when they open with the Star Destroyer scene, I was like, they're just really trying to make you think that it was the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah, and kind of to go off of what both of you said, between like the spirituality of like the season, between like the kind of like dichotomy of like Din is like this very devout follower of the way, and then whereas like Bo-Katan isn't really like she's like a Mandalorian, but she's not really like a practicing Mandalorian, as a better way to, I guess, to like kind of phrase it. Whereas because
she accidentally baptized herself.
Yeah. I wonder how often that happens. But yeah, and then like she saw the mythosaur too, so we like it's interesting, like with some of like these ideas that they're like kind of playing around with. So I'm curious to kind of see like some of these hanging threads of like the frame job of Moff Gideon being captured, Bo seeing the mythosaur. Armor is definitely the bad guy. And then just as far as like how Mandalore is restored is because the way like the armor also phrased that made me feel like or think that she didn't really mean like Mandalore itself, more possibly just taking over Navarro as being like new Mandalore, possibly.
That was it's a good point because Jack Black there was like, we recognize Mandalore as whatever. I was like, they don't live there, so what's the point of that? But going back to the armor as the bad guy, like I think they want to get back to Mandalore in some fashion, and that's the armor's end goal because of how the armor talked about the forges on Mandalore. That wasn't accidental. How she like opined for those forges on Mandalore.
Yeah.
So I was just like, she like that's her end game is to get back there in some fashion. That's where I'm
True.
at.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see where we go in these next two episodes. But before we close out, I'm gonna give Christian a side question that I know Mike won't have like a connection to just yet. What has been your favorite Star Wars connection echo reference so far in this season of Ted Lasso, Christian?
Oh man.
Should I plug my ears? Should I not listen?
So like the obvious one is the set design for Rupert's office, looking very like Death Star throne roomy. But then a more subtle one is, I think, Rupert. There's something about like the way that they're dressing him this year. He's got this kind of like long roby trench that sort of like flows and flares out at the end. That does feel very Sith-y.
Palpatine robes.
Yeah, and he feels even grosser than usual too. So,
Always a good quality.
Yeah, very, very Palpatine-y.
Nice. And the elevator pitch to Mike why he should watch Ted Lasso.
I already said I'm going to. I just have to.
Well, I just think it's interesting each person's elevator pitch to people on like why they should check it out. Because I like hearing why other people like the show. So
I'm just gonna mute him so I can't hear him.
I mean, so the thing that I would say is because it is one of the few shows that my wife and I actually enjoy together. And that's very rare. It's a very short list of shows. So I think the ones that we do enjoy watching together are worth checking out.
Nice.
I mean, you're not watching Blind Date together or whatever the hell that show is on Netflix? Love is Blind?
No, we're not watching the old Love is Blind. And the funny thing is, like, we'll try shows and then get a few episodes in and we're like, nope, not working. Gotta try something else. So this one has stood the test of time.
Stood the test of time. Now explain to me, because your podcast is what, Richmond Till We Die?
Yes.
Explain to me the title, because I have not watched a single episode of Ted Lasso.
It's a whatever, like team mascot or team imagery till we die is like classic soccer chanting. And so there's like, we're Richmond Till We Die is a chant in the show. And then if you were, whatever, Timbers fan, Timbers Till We Die, Rose City Till We Die, like whatever, you're going to hear that. So
gotcha.
Nice.
Common soccer parlance.
It's not football, it's soccer.
We go back and forth. We know that a lot of people that listen to us don't watch soccer. So the two things that I really have to hold myself back on are getting too nerdy about soccer and too nerdy about Star Wars in any one episode. So those are the
dangerous lines right there.
Yep.
Dangerous
Throttle myself a bit.
Well, At least in this episode, you got to jump over that line, at least for Star Wars, for what you could do.
Yeah, it was great. Bathed in the waters.
You didn't trip and fall.
So, yeah. And people that are watching the video version of this can see that my mini schnauzer is trying to bathe me in the waters of her freaking tongue. So with that, for this episode, you can leave us a review on the podcast catcher of your choice. That allows you to do so. Helps us out a lot. So whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And then in our show notes, you can find all the places to find us on social media, like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on YouTube if you're watching it. You can also find Mike and myself on Instagram and Twitter and other places. Also, the information is also in the show notes. And then, Christian, where can they find you and Richmond Til We Die?
Yeah, at TED Lasso Pod is our Twitter handle. It's also our Instagram handle. www.tedlassopod.com will point you in the direction of all of our jazz, and from there you can kind of find what we do and who we are and what we love to talk about.
Will that be in the show notes?
Yeah. Always. And then you've now joined the pantheon of our Lasso Star Wars kind of crew for this Mando talk this season. So we've now been you, Coach Beard's book club with Marita and not Rebecca. Oh, wow, now I'm gonna feel bad. Michaela, and then we had Craig McFarlane last week from Peanut Butter and Biscuits, and then Kenny from LassoCast came on with his Trek Wars co-host Aspen, who I feel like we should always apologize to every episode for making her
from here on out
deal with Mike, myself, and Kenny continuously bringing up the jizz wailing in the Star Wars universe
and poetry that rhymes.
Yeah, because it's like poetry, it rhymes.
And calling her Messina to Kenny Loggins.
Yes.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. See, she didn't know who he was, so which fair.
Yeah. But yeah, so and then again, our episodes are edited by Vactor. You can find him on Twitter and Instagram as well. And then you can email us at holdapod@gmail.com. But as always, we're grateful to George Lucas for creating the Star Wars universe.
Thank the maker. This oil bath is going to feel so good.